And I am going to be talking about eye dominance, and lots of times in surgery, in surgery evaluations, I tell patients we can measure which eye is dominant. We can't necessarily measure how dominant it is and quantify the dominance. And the goal of this technology and study was to quantify eye dominance. I am a consultant for Two Eyes Vision, who developed the technology I'm talking about, and I am on their medical advisory board. We performed this study of quantifying eye dominance with this device in 5 centers in the United States, and I thank my fellow investigators for this data. The Symvis Gecko device made by Two Eyes Vision is a very interesting technology that is a wearable. It fits comfortably on the patient's head. It's binocular. And with its see-through technology, we have used it as a simulator to show various presbyopic corrections, for instance, like monovision or EDOF, or trifocality. And so it was very natural for the technology to also be something that we would consider as useful for monovision type testing and to truly understand eye dominance. And the way the technology was used by us is we would make sure the patient was fully refracted in each eye, and then we would do preference testing. And we would ask the patient, do you prefer one of 2 different options? And then they would give an answer. And the beauty of it is the simplicity. And for instance, in this example, the patient would be asked, do you prefer option 1? And right now, just kind of notice out of that eye, it looks a little reduced contrast. Or do you prefer option 2? And this patient, when you would ask them, would say, I prefer option 2. And then we would repeat that 10 different times, and it would give us interesting data on the preferred eye with each test. And it usually took around 2 minutes and 30 seconds to perform this test. And here's some examples of the data that we could get. You can see the top example of looking at eye dominance. It was a little bit sometimes right, sometimes left, a little shared dominance going on. And then the next patient, it was, could be very obvious that they were left eye dominant on all 10 tests, and the next one, all right eye dominant on all 10 tests. And so we learned a lot from these 263 patients, and that was that there was, equidominance we defined as, kind of what I would call shared dominance clinically. And then weak dominance, which is starting to tell us that there's a more dominant eye, and we considered that 70 to 80%. And then strong dominance was when 90 to 100% of the answers were in favor of that eye. And we learned some interesting things about dominance that we've never really been able to describe before until this technology. And I have to thank Dr. Susanna Marcos and her team, who actually we have the honor of having in the audience. But when we looked at this, how strong is the dominance? The strong dominance was the majority, of the patients, around 53%. And then equidominance at far was 24%, and weak dominance 23%. And then we also looked at it at near, and that's one of the beauties of this technology is we can check dominance at near, intermediate, and distance. and found a relatively similar distribution. And again, this is the first time we've studied this, so I think we have, more to learn from this. And when we looked at the subgroup of presbyopia patients, which would be our interest for monovision, it was actually relatively similar trend, that the highest group were people that had an obvious strong dominance, but we also had some equidominance and some weak dominance. And you can imagine that we're going to be able to start to study these groups about relative success with, our monovision procedures and the different types of technology that we offer them, that it's kind of the first time that we can really study it and quantify it. And when we compare it to like the way we do it in our office, the hole in the card test, 41% of the subjects had a different dominant eye than what we kind of consider a tried and true way to measure eye dominance. And this was very surprising to all 5 of us investigators who, do the test that's on your left, and now are gravitating towards the test that's on your right. And so it amazes me how many of these patients, what's that? Okay. It amazed us how many eyes were different for dominance with this test. So it not only evaluates eye dominance, but it quantifies it and is based on a robust method and has taught us a lot, and I think is going to be real valuable for the future of eye surgery. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So we'll go with the second paper, Impact of the See-Through Visual